experience being a freshman at Lewis and Clark is that it was an entirely different environment from what I'm used to at home. I come from a really rural, small, predominantly white town in Colorado. And coming to Lewis and Clark, I was exposed to a lot more things. And one part of it was like what it means to be Filipino American and just what it means to be Asian and what it means to be mixed. And I have been disconnected with my culture for my whole life. And so last year, I'm still experiencing the same things that a Filipino American would experience and what a brown person and person of color in America would experience, but I just didn't understand anything else about my culture. So, Kapamilya Filipino Student Club is a club that was alive a couple years ago, but it kind of died out with the seniors that graduated. So me and three other lovely human beings have picked up Kapamilya again and is trying to revitalize it. And so far we've had a lot of success, but it is meaningful for me to be a part of Kapamilya Filipino Student Club because it is helping me learn about who I am. Last year, freshman year, I really struggled to understand who I am, and so this is me kind of reaching out and building connections so that I can just learn more about myself. To me, leadership in Kapamilya feels like I am fighting back against assimilation, which is it's a big word and it's a big concept. But I actively am trying to relearn my culture so that I do not let American assimilation take it away from me. Student Athletes of Color Association falls under the name The Collective. The Collective has been around for quite some time. It was mostly in the beginning, it started off for male athletes of color, and then they created a women's collective, so athletes of color who were identifying as women, and then they just eventually, this year, they just combined it, and it's just the collective. But they realized the only way to get turnout is to involve the student athletes itself on the leadership team, which has worked. This is our first year having a student board for the collective. At our first event, which was just kind of like a barbecue kickoff, we had 80 people show up, which was absolutely amazing. And to me, it's just really important to just find a space and support to not only be a student athlete, but also a student athlete of color. I feel like we really need to stick together and just support each other because I want to feel supported in my racial identity, but also with that context of I'm also performing on a sports team and I'm representing my school. And so the point of the collective, some previous events we've done is we've had community circles surrounding just what it means to be a student athlete of color, and just being able to connect with other student athletes of color. We've had a panel discussion with alums who were student athletes here at Lewis and Clark College, and one that I really felt like I connected with was this lawyer who is she's years down the line, she's gone to law school and everything, and she's working in a firm now. And she kind of spoke about her experiences being the only person of color working in a predominantly white field, and just how isolating and hard it is, but also how important the work that she's doing is. And that when she gets told by her clients oh, I have a black lawyer, it's so awesome, and it just makes her super happy. And as someone majoring in political science, that definitely feels like it hits home because I'm not super sure about legal field yet, but it's definitely kind of the direction I'm going in. And I already see in my classes that it's just it's mostly white. So it feels really important to me to be able to find support in a space where I can feel comfortable and safe and supported in my racial identity. The point of it is just to connect student athletes of color with resources, opportunities, and support that they don't typically have. As a low-income student of color, there's a lot of things that I did not have access to. And so the collective is trying to kind of help with that. An upcoming event that we're working on, not sure yet, but it's a tentative idea, is a sports nutrition workshop. And I want to work with Tina and MVP from last year's sessions. But basically, I feel like student athletes of color, or maybe student athletes like me who come from low-income households, might not have had access to healthy food growing up and might not have had access to just someone teaching them about how to eat so that they can perform at a high level in their sport. And so I really want to be able to provide like opportunities for student athletes of color to like learn about like what should you be eating in order for you to like perform in your sport. And I want to try and bring in like relatable examples from the bone. So like give like physical like pictures of like here's what your meal can look like at the bone, or here's what you can put in it, to provide like extra resources and opportunities for student athletes of color to be successful, because we are not given these same resources and opportunities as maybe a white athlete is given. Another one we're thinking of is a workshop surrounding like how to build your leadership style, and how to just like understand your leadership style and how to use it to help out your team, and support your team and lead your team. And my thinking behind this is that I feel like student athletes of color oftentimes kind of shy away from speaking up and trying to lead, solely because we're in a predominantly white institution, and sometimes it can be hard to really speak up against that like power dynamic when you have just when you have a lot of white teammates. So I feel like it's important for student athletes of color to just feel really like grounded in their own leadership and feel confident and trust themselves to lead, so that they can like step up and support their team more. I think I just want it to keep going, because coming in my freshman year definitely felt hard to find support for things I needed support in. And I had my teammates, it was great. I love my teammates, but I just wish I had more support in being low income first gen and a person of color on campus who's also playing a sport. Because I feel like IME has lots of spaces for students of color to like connect and be with each other, but I feel like it's really hard to participate and just be a part of that as a student athlete. My schedule is like completely different. So I think the collective is really unique in that sense, and I want it to keep going. And as for like Kapamilya Filipino Student Club, I don't feel like we've had like a like safe space for Filipinos on campus, even though like I know they're out there, like there's so many on campus, but we've never really had like a space to like connect. So I'm excited for that to just like sustain. I just really want these things to sustain even after I graduate. And as for like what I'll get from it, I think it like regrounds me and my identity to connect with people who are like me, and even to find people who maybe are struggling in their identity like I was and like I still am. I don't think Kapamilya is going to teach me everything there is about being Filipino. And I think that's probably going to be a lifelong process, and I'm just going to keep learning and learning. Um, but I think it's really like it's still going to fulfill me and make me happy, because also like social work and like community building and everything is also my passion. I just like working with people, and I like connecting people, especially like minority groups and marginalized populations, because those are, I feel like, the people who need support the most but often get the least amount of support. So it's really, really important for us to find those spaces to connect, especially in a